Hello, welcome to Author Hour. I'm your host, Richard Lyntton, author of North Korea Deception and Hyde Park Deception. Today, I would like to welcome local Philadelphia author Mike Farragher, author of 6 books, including his latest, The Last Temptation of Mary. We'll talk about that in a moment. His words have jumped from page to stage with no less than 2 produced off-Broadway plays. He started Love Letter Profiles, a dating profile writing business. His Love Letter Profiles short film has won him awards at film festivals this season, and he's shopping around, as we say in the business, a TV series concept to the streaming services. Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much. And before we begin, I have to say, I'm looking at your side profile, and that angled jaw you have is much more pronounced than on the back of your book jacket. Really, it is.
I need to use it.
I'm a little jealous because I don't have one at all.
I need to use it. I love it. Mike, there's so much to get into. Normally we have authors on the show, and you were introduced to me as an author, but you make films, you've done short films, you've done plays, you've written 4 books. Is that right?
6.
And I just want to start, by the way, this is the latest book. I love the cover. Notice the pint of Guinness with the devil horns coming out, and the Bloody Mary next to it. And this is basically, you tell us what this is about in a nutshell, just so that...
Well, if I could ask you to hold up the other book cover, because then it'll kind of make sense. So you'll see also a recurring theme about the pint with the devil horns and the devil, the devil tail. And by the way, that was done by a local Philadelphia guy as well, The Last Temptation of Mary. The graphic was done by Paul Preiser, who was out of Doylestown, and he did an excellent job. So those 2 books are kind of together with one another. There's The Last Temptation of Mary and The Devilish Pint. And The Last Temptation of Mary attempts to imagine what would it be like if the Mother of God, the Blessed Virgin Mary, comes back to earth, and she's now out to find love on her own terms. Because the first time around, she married Joseph. It was somewhat of an arranged marriage. And she's the queen of love and has never experienced romance and courtship on her own. Right. So she is followed down to earth by a team of guardian angels. And it's sort of like the Queer Eye guys. They're there to give her a makeover and watch out for her. And then the devil sees this opportunity that maybe if I can get her the love of her life, maybe I can curry favor with the guy upstairs and we can both break back into heaven. So it's really that kind of a conversation that's a very modern day story, and you're putting these biblical characters that are so well known universally and putting them into modern day unique situations. And that's what kind of fascinated me as I was teasing the idea for the story.
It's very ambitious, I feel.
Ambitious
because not only are you trying to be funny, I mean, it is funny, but one question I wanted to ask you is, as a comedy writer, which I feel that you are, although you've also written a
that's very accurate.
How do you cope with wanting to be funny, but making it seem like you're trying not to be funny? Is that hard?
Well, that's always the rub, right? I always thought that humor can also make people think. I mean, in this area where free speech is being challenged, there are people like a Dave Chappelle that's going to be funny, yet he's going to have very hard-hitting messages in his comedy routine. So I actually think humor is sort of the last hill that we might all die on in the area of free speech, because you can sneak in a message without clubbing somebody over the head with it. And there's always that balance of that. Did I get that right or not? But that's what I find is really fascinating around humor writing, especially in the area of faith, where quite a few of my books have been grounded in faith discussions. I was a Roman Catholic. I'm now a Lutheran. I've struggled with, what do I really believe in? What was I taught versus what I believed in? And rather than go into this heavy, intense analysis and bring readers along with it, I can make up these stories that would actually have them think about their own faith and evaluate things on their side and make them laugh. So to your point, it is ambitious and it's a tall order, but it's something that's a lot of fun.
I think it's fantastic. It's really fun book, great summer read. Tell us about how you actually physically, the writing process, because this is, as I always like to say, a show about writing. So just give us a little pen picture. How long did it take you to write your 4 books? How long did it take you to write the plays? And can you just give us a little bit of a sense of your writing schedule? Because there's a beautiful, I love the way, I'm not going to read it out. I was going to read it out, but we haven't got that much time. But I love the way you describe writing in the chapter, in the introduction of, no, I think it was another book, or maybe it was this book, but you talk about how tough it is to write, however many books, 4 or 6 books.
Sure it is.
But so give us a sense of, your schedule. How do you get it all done?
Schedule's key, but I also think inspiration is overrated, right? It's really, inspiration without action is just entertainment. You just entertain yourself for a moment like, gee, I'd love to be an author one day. When in fact, you really have to take that inspiration and take it to the action to actually write something down. So I find myself to be more of a lunch pail writer. Like, you're an actor, right? There's times when you're not inspired to go on a set, but you're there because you're being paid to do it, whether you like it or not. So you want to write whether you like it or not, and write something every day.
Wow.
So I do have an equation that I like to share with people that I hopefully inspires them. And that is, that book that's right over there is 200 pages or 50,000 words.
Okay.
If you divide 50,000 words by the number of days in a year, 365, what you get is 136 words a day. So that's actually 2 meaty paragraphs.
Okay.
So if you wrote 2 meaty paragraphs a day and you really stuck to that schedule, this time next year, you'd be on Richard Lyntton's
show,
right? Because you would have done it. So it really is 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day.
Do you write 7 days a week?
I normally write 7 days a week, or I really do reserve Sundays as my writing day. So if I don't get it done throughout the week, then I just have some time after church that I just sit down and I have a couple of hours. And I really try to write no less than 1,000 words a week when I'm in that writing fever. But sometimes, as you know yourself, you could write 1,000 words in an afternoon. So if it's happening there, I'm not going to limit myself. But I do think a schedule, even if you write, I don't feel like writing 50 times, it's something that you can move the ball and move past all those doubts and fears that everybody else has.
And where do you write, and what do you write on?
I typically write on my MacBook Air, so there's a little promo for Apple. And I also really can write anywhere. Funnily enough, I love writing in the chaos of an airport lobby in the waiting area, because your next character might be whizzing by with a suitcase. You never know, right? So I don't really need to have the bubble bath and the candles and the quiet place. I can really write anywhere.
That's great. That's great. And then you, okay, so say you've written a chapter. Do you then like, how many times will you go over that chapter? And then
not as many.
Not as many as you should.
Not as many as I should. No, because I think, I might go back into the last few pages to see where I was. Almost like a fresh coat of paint, though. I don't go too far back. I'm a big believer in not editing yourself too much as you're going along. Just get the story out first. I actually rely heavily on an editor to edit my stuff and say, well, this doesn't work. This, an editor is worth their weight in gold, as you know. And I usually try not to edit myself. I'm the storyteller. I'm the writer. I keep to that lane. It's not always easy to do that. But I also just think moving forward, it's almost like a shark. A shark never looks backward. It's always looking forward to the next meal and just going to where the story's going to go next.
Is that a professional editor, or is that like friends that you show?
I have a professional editor. So,
because I noticed you give a lot of acknowledgements, so tons of people have helped you along the way. So was that like in the early days when you had people reading your manuscripts, like your early books?
Well, in this case, The Last Temptation to Mary, one of the goals was I wanted to write a story about faith, but I always, this is third rail stuff too. You're writing about the Blessed Mother. She is sacred. Right? So the last thing I want to do is sell books in hell. So what I did in this particular case, which I don't normally do, is I actually gave the book to my Lutheran pastor as well as a priest friend of mine to say, I want to go up against a line, and I want to provoke, but I don't want to be sacrilegious or offend. Now, everybody's, there's going to be people that are going to be offended at the least little thing. But overall, I really wanted to have some guide rails here so that I don't lose the reader because I offended her or put, for instance, the Blessed Mother in a compromising position, if you know what I mean. I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be a romantic comedy using somebody that is so sacred and revered. She's the queen of love that has never really had love of her own in terms of a romantic courtship. And wanted to stick to that. And it was interesting to get those pre-readers' opinions because, as an example, they both kind of coughed up a hairball as to how I portrayed Joseph.
Right.
Well, he never really left Mary. He just sort of died and faded away. Okay. He didn't actually abandon Mary. So that's an example of something that they would have picked up that was scripturally accurate that I had to re-edit. So I was very grateful for their perspective.
So I noticed your original website for your books was this. You have to tell me.
This is Your Brain on Shamrocks.
This is Your Brain on Shamrocks, all one word. This is Your Brain on Shamrocks. Great website. Loved it. .com. But the thing is, that's just for the books. But because you're doing so much else, you've now got a new website, MikeFarragher.com, right?
Yes, and maybe just a little bit of explanation around that. So this is Your Brain on Shamrocks.
Because I love it. It's a fantastic website.
Sort of what started it all. I really love my Irish culture, my Irish heritage.
I see that.
And my first books were actually humorous essays that appeared in the Irish Voice and the irishcentral.com.
Okay.
And as an example, when I was growing up, my mother would knock on the door and say, time to go to church. And I'd be like, Mom, Mass is not going to happen. And my mom would say in her Irish accent, well, I'm sure the Lord Jesus Christ didn't want to get up the day he died for your sins.
Gee, I think so.
Totally.
Is that in your books?
It's in my books.
It better be.
And then my birds and the bees discussion was one sentence where she said, you didn't get that thing down there between your legs for stirring tea.
And it's in the play.
Totally
Isn't that in the play?
Exactly. Yeah.
I saw that. They got a great laugh. I thought
those are really true.
Wait, I just have to. So if you go to the website, the play, one of your plays, I don't know whether it's a clip or the whole play.
This is Your Brain on Shamrocks.
It's in a theater. Is that in Broadway?
Black Box Theater.
Amazing.
Right on Manhattan Repertory Theater. Shout out to them. They're doing amazing work.
I was going to say, I mean, that, again, just switching gears, that is not an easy thing to do. You got people sitting there in the theater. It was pretty packed. And they're laughing within seconds of your work. That's what I noticed, okay? Because I'm an actor and I've been in plays that are not funny and supposed to be funny. What was that like for you to have, and how did it come about for you to have your play? So how long did it take to write the play? How did you get it produced off-Broadway?
Well, the first, a lot of questions there packed in. The first answer would be, how did it feel? Next to the birth of my children, I don't think I've had a better experience. I'm even getting choked up about it now because I was in the back row, and when the place erupted with laughter, I'll never forget that moment. I'll remember what I was wearing. I remember what the theater smelled like. It was just one of those most extraordinary experiences. And I think that's the interesting thing about moving from the book form to the play form. When I just mentioned about my mother and did the Irish accent and I made you laugh, I'm pretty good at that. Right? If you and I are one-on-one.
Are you an actor as well?
For a hot minute, a little bit. But if I need to jump in, but it's not
professional.
I'd rather be in the back row watching everybody watch it.
Right.
But one of the things that is interesting about comedy writing to me is that if I'd started to bring my mom's Irish accent out, I'd make a whole Irish bar laugh.
Right.
But one of the things around This Is Your Brain on Shamrocks is I was always interested in saying, let's say you were in a bar in Nebraska, in an Irish bar, and there was the book, and somebody who didn't know me and didn't have the benefit of me talking picked it up, would they laugh?
Right.
I was obsessed with that.
Right.
Can you make a laugh come out of the written word without the audio, without the inflections and that kind of thing?
Yeah, great point.
And then, that became successful. I was able to do that. Then it was a matter of, can you write to the rhythm of theater? And can you write to the rhythm of comedy, which includes waiting for somebody to exhale and stop laughing before you throw the next line on them. And one of the first pieces I produced, McLean Avenue, it was actually, what I learned about it was a TV show, it was actually too funny. And what I meant by too funny was the laughs were coming one after another and after another. So people were busy laughing at the last thing you did before
they couldn't keep up with the story.
They couldn't keep up with the story.
Right.
So on one side of the coin, you might think to yourself, well, that's a good problem to have. It's that funny, right? But it's not, because there is a rhythm to comedy that I think I've been successful in getting into that rhythm, but there's also been times when I haven't been. And in the case of This Is Your Brain on Shamrocks and McBriss's plays, that was really great learning for me to watch a room laugh, when they laughed, how to put a beat in before you put another funny concept in front of them. And that was like it was it was a play, but it was almost a laboratory for me as a writer to see if I could do that.
So the clip that I watched on your Mike Farragher website, MikeFarragher.com, was that the first night, the theater clip?
It was the first or second night. I actually don't remember.
So I guess I'm just curious. Like, so how did you go every night to watch to learn about the laughs? Yeah,
I did, and I watched.
And did it vary each night?
It did vary each night. It did vary each night, and sometimes the afternoon crowd, which might have been a bit older, they actually laughed harder because it brought back memories of their own mother. Oh, and then in the evening, it was more of a diverse crowd, and they were younger. Yeah, and so maybe some of the Irish humor might have been too Irish for them, so it might have went over their head. But I think, most cultures have a mother that guilts them, right? So even though this is your brain on shamrocks, I could have made it this is your brain on pasta, or this is your brain on pierogies, because, Polish moms do this, and Italian and Jewish moms do this. My wife's Jewish, so hello. So the Irish don't exactly have Irish mothers don't have the market cornered on guilt. I get you. Yeah, and that is a big thing. You talk about the guilt thing, and that brings us on to again something a little bit more serious, which is is it a thriller, Collard? Mm-hmm. It's a thriller. It's a fictional story about abuse in the Catholic priesthood. Let's just take a quick look, because as an author myself, I love this book trailer, and this is what authors have to do. So just take a look at the Collard book trailer.
You do know the last 5 priests that I've written about have been murdered.
Yes.
You're still willing to do this?
I'm not worried. I haven't abused any children.
Father Cahill, a Father Cuano, a Father Keith, we know you and your brother were abused as kids.
We'd do anything for each other, right?
Yes, Father.
So what I love about that trailer is, well, first of all, was that your idea to do the trailer?
The book company actually approached me and said that this might be some story that would be good for Hollywood, and that was back in 2004. I thought that, the book company thought that, but Hollywood didn't think that at the time, because they thought, this is 2004, the sex abuse scandal news is just coming out, and people thought this was too hot. Right. Now, 9 years later, Spotlight gets produced and wins Oscars.
That's what I was thinking.
I think our timing wasn't 100%. And it's funny you should bring up Collard now, because that's actually my next project, is put that into a script form. I really think that the time is right. Unfortunately, that story of sex abuse in not only the Roman Catholic Church, but in a lot of other positions of power has not gone away. And it can still be part of the conversation.
I find it extraordinary how prevalent both in England and here. It's definitely not just a United States thing, but the whole people who abused when they were children thing, is just so, friends in conversation now, I feel, tell me, oh yeah, I was abused. It's just extraordinary. And I don't know I don't know what you think, but I don't know whether social media now helps that, or, maybe that helps that bring it out more.
It certainly makes it safer, because people really are much more open to share.
Right.
Like for me, I wrote that in 2004.
Right.
And I actually was sexually abused myself. So this is my own way to process what happened to me. So when the book came out, I actually had a drink with the priest that abused me.
No way.
And I gave him the book, and I said, I'm not cool with what you did. I want you to read this, and I want you to have a discussion. And the book ended up leading to a conversation in my high school community in which he was removed and prosecuted.
Wow.
So, I always tell people, whether I never sold one book of Collard, that was a triumph for me, because it really allowed me to confront and get complete with what had happened to me and take my power back.
Did he know what the conversation was going to be about?
No, I hit him right between the eyes.
So you met, and did you say you met in a bar?
We met in a bar.
Was he wearing priest?
Oh yeah, he was across the street from the school I went to.
So you said, how did you?
I slipped it over to, well, first of all, he goes, hey, drinks are on me, because I wrote a book, and I went, so did I. And I slipped this across from him. And I was like, he looked at it because it's a very Gothic cover and it's got a hand over a priest's throat. So he just looked, he goes, whoa, what's this? And then he read the back jacket and he went white and he said, is this about me? And I said, it's not about you, but you're all over it.
Whoa.
So I want you to read this. I'm not cool with what you did. I forgive you. I'm on to you.
Wow.
And then we're going to have a conversation. So we had a conversation a few months later.
I was going to say, when you said, I'm going to have a conversation, did he like run away just then?
This,
or did you?
Read this and you and I are going to talk.
Wow. Wow.
So then what happened was he met me in a bar near my house a couple of months later, and he just said, you know, I could see what you meant by I'm all over this, but I never meant that that's what was going on, you know. And then as soon as he did that, he had actually scheduled some nun friends of his that lived nearby to come in and break up the conversation before I could get into it with him.
Whoa.
He was very, very one step ahead, which is really something that predatory priests and religious brothers, that's kind of a par for the course. If you read any of the Boston Globe accounts, they're always one step ahead and trying to control the narrative and control the situation. And he did that. Now he said, oh, this was an isolated incident, but as the book went around the school, other people came forward and said he did this, you know, it was a cookie cutter approach that he had.
Right.
So, so it really was an opportunity for me to get complete. It's a dark book. I like to say that if Tony Soprano from The Sopranos was abused as an altar boy and came back to settle some scores, it might look like that. It's a dark, angry book. However, it was a book that I needed to get out of my system so that the lighthearted frivolity of This Is Your Brain on Shamrocks and Last Temptation of Mary can, you know, I can put all of that aside and have a dialogue on faith, which many of my books are dialogues on faith and how I was raised, but I want to make them, again, as we said in the beginning, very lighthearted. But I couldn't do that with, you know, this like right in front of my eyes, what had happened, you know.
How prevalent? I mean, like, it wasn't just you, presumably?
It wasn't just me, no. It was other people that came out as well. And
so did this get into like the press?
It did get into the press, yes. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, as a non-Catholic, and obviously I watched Spotlight, and I'm sure stuff, you know, has gone on.
And by the way, when I watched Spotlight, I had to leave the theater twice.
Wow.
Because I just couldn't.
Wow.
I couldn't handle it.
Wow.
That was such a, I can't tell you how accurate that was.
Right.
Like, especially when the reporter is sitting down with her mother and is telling her tomorrow morning the Boston Globe's coming out.
Yeah.
And I've
I've
written about your faith
right.
in a way that you're not going to like. I had the same conversation with my mother,
okay,
who's a president of the Rosary Society and everything else. I had to have that same conversation with her because she didn't even know I was writing a book.
Yeah.
So the first copy went to her and my father, where I said, this is what happened.
And they had no idea.
This guy was in our family photos.
Right. Wow.
He had infiltrated so much. So it was starting off there, where it wasn't just the family or the kids that were seduced. He seduced the whole family ecosystem, which again is common. And then the second book went to him, where that evening I met him for drinks, and I was just like, I'm not cool with what you did. Sure. And I'm on to you.
And did you, at that stage, did you have any idea of did you want him removed? Did you hope that might lead to him being removed from his job?
Well, fortunately, you know, you hear a lot about the cover-ups, because that's almost
right.
worse than the crime itself.
Right.
I will acknowledge the Religious Order of Brothers that they took, as soon as they knew, they took action, and they took appropriate action. Right. So I felt that it was appropriate. Once they found out about it, they moved on it with velocity.
Right.
So you know, I still donate to my local high school, to the high school, because, you know, he was one bad apple in a group of religious brothers and religious educators that really enriched my life. So right. I can compartmentalize the bad apple and really appreciate the contributions that school did for me.
Sure. Do you think that, I mean, was that the main thing that helped you just get over it? Had you been?
Yeah, it was the book.
Right. So you weren't like going to a psychotherapist for years?
Not at all. That was it.
Right.
That was
all you needed.
You know, I had also done a personal empowerment course. It's called the Landmark Forum.
I did that.
Did you really?
Yes,
so did I. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So I did the Landmark Forum.
Right.
And
did you speak? Did you say?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right.
But I did the Landmark Forum, and then what ended up happening was there were two things that were holding me back from writing. The first one is I was ashamed that you'd find out about the fact that I was sexually abused, and I was ashamed of that. But then the second one, which is also a religious, when I was in the 5th grade, I had a 5th grade nun. When I wrote my memoir, she wrote F and she wrote the word moron. And from that point forward, I just had it in my head that I was inarticulate. When I was writing emails for business, I would agonize over them because I thought I was stupid and inarticulate. And one of the, this story does have a happy ending because, as you mentioned, Love Letters is my short film, and it's winning at some of the film festivals. One of the most moving nights of my life, apart from the play, was I was at the Brightside Film Festival in Jersey City, and I won Best Writer.
Unbelievable.
3 miles and 43 years from when I got the F and the moron. So it just was such a full circle moment.
I love it.
To go back to Jersey
Isn't that
City
crazy?
And actually claim a Best Writer award in a city that taught me that I was stupid and inarticulate. And do you know what I mean? So, so in many ways, writing, I wouldn't say writing saved my life, but I think writing changed the trajectory.
I'll say it for you.
We're very articulate people as writers. Trajectory of my life. Because, I could still be sitting in that morass of the abuse. But I literally, when I wrote it, it was bound, it was out of my system, and then I didn't look back.
Right.
And I can talk about it now like I had eggs this morning.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love the way you talk about it because it's so important being able to talk about this kind of stuff. And again, I guess we all have these stories, but it's so funny, that moron story, because I've told this story before, but I remember aged 8, my favorite thing was Wednesday and Friday afternoons in primary school, and we would write. So I was writing a book. I was writing a Cowboys and Indian book, and I'd written most kids were writing 1 or 2 or 3 pages, and I'd got to page 40, and I was so excited because I'm literally writing kind of a novel. And then one afternoon, I'm on chapter like 35 or something, and Miss Woods, our teacher, she said, "Oh, let me see how it's going today." And she sat down and she got a red pen, and I hadn't even finished a chapter. She drew a red line underneath it and put "the end." And she, I've been looking forward to writing the end since I began, right? Anyway, so those stories are just...
We all have them though.
We all have them.
And as a writer, getting back to the writing process, every writer has some disempowering context.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of persevering through that.
Yeah.
That's the difference between people who write and people who don't.
Right. You got to keep trying. But another fascinating thing about you, gosh, we've covered some of it, but you're now helping people write. You're using your art, your craft, your talent to help people write profiles, correct me if I'm wrong, for matchmaking sites and for business.
For LinkedIn. So to help people with their LinkedIn profiles.
Just tell us about that.
And
how can we use that?
So it's lovelettersprofiles.com or careerletters.com.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of difference. It seems like it's dramatically different worlds, but it's not, because in both cases, inside the writing process, you're instilling people a confidence to go after what they want.
Right.
So whether or not that's reshaping your resume so that you can really amplify your business accomplishments, or getting out of the way all this lack of confidence, or I'm not good enough, making a playful, funny, flirtatious dating profile that really gets somebody's attention. I tell people all the time, I'm going to provide the bait, you're going to provide the hook, you got to wiggle it in the water. Right. But I'm going to provide a funny, flirtatious profile for you to kind of be expressed romantically. And then for the resume and the LinkedIn, same thing, putting your life story in a context in such a way that brings up all your great accomplishments and attracts the jobs and the headhunters and things like that. So they're kind of similar, even though they seem very divergent.
You got to have the humor again. Coming back to the humor, it's so fascinating. I hadn't thought about that for the match thing. It's funny. I had a burst tire yesterday, and there was a policeman behind me stopping the traffic. Sort of hit me. I was on Route 30, and I just thought I was trying to get him to crack a smile, the policeman. And I feel like police always have that thing that they don't want to get too friendly, because that's, they don't want to get too close. That's their thing. But it just made me think about humor and how important humor is, you know.
Now, I have a cop that's very good looking in my town, and he's very attractive. And, you know, I've heard this line from police officers before. If a woman's like, "Hey, what's your number?" They go 911.
Oh, I love it.
I love it. So cops have humor too. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they do have humor. Let me see. I think we are almost out of time. The trailer for the book Collared. Now, sorry, the TV thing. That's what I want to go back to. You're shopping in 1 minute. We've only got 1 minute left, Mike. But you literally, the first episode is 30 minutes already. McLean Avenue.
So McLean Avenue. That's based on my life, being a reporter for the Irish Voice and being backstage and watching the shenanigans that go on backstage, and also in the front of the stage with the people that follow these bands.
Yeah.
And it did great in the film festivals, and it's still kind of bouncing around. And then Love Letters Profiles is really sort of like the Amazon Modern Love mixed with Nip Tuck. It's a little twisted, a little twist in it. And so both of those are being shopped around looking for homes and looking for developments.
You can see them on your website.
Trailers on MikeFarragher.com.
Yeah.
You can, yeah.
But was that just a trailer, or was that a 30-minute episode? Did I misread it?
There was a 30-minute episode and a trailer.
Amazing.
And then I also did a 12-minute episode for Love Letters Profiles and a 2-minute trailer.
And being an actor, I wanted to talk all about making that, but then we've run out of time.
We've run out of time.
Never mind.
Next time.
Mike, thank you. You're going to have to come back.
Thank you very much.
You definitely have to come back. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today, taking us from books to plays to screen. You can find out all about Mike and his books at www.mikefarragher.com. Or this is your brain on shamrocks.com. Those are his books. And yes, that is one of the best website addresses you've ever seen. So this is your brain on shamrocks. Finally, if you've missed it, this year is the Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebration. That means that the Queen has been on the royal throne for 70 years. You can enjoy this non-fiction royal memoir about my great aunt Florence Bramford. She traveled the world on royal tours under 2 Queen Elizabeths, and the book is called From Cottage to Palace, also available on Amazon. Cheerio, see you next time.